Hello guys, this is Bryant Tubbs coming at you with another video. Today is going to be a quick video, really quick video. Don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but I think it's an important video. So today I'm going to be focusing on leg levelers. So if you have a bench, like the metal art bench I'm making that bench for a gentleman out of the Midland area. He commissioned a bench as a memorial for a friend of his that passed away. And so I'm just trying to make it as special as possible. And when he first, commissioned the piece, like this is one of the legs. This is the rear leg for the bench, so it'll be kind of sitting in this position. The bench will come off the front here of this portion. The back riser where you put your back will be in this position here. And so the bench has a 10-degree angle going up and going back. And so when he first commissioned the piece, he was wanting us to put like round discs, like maybe quarter-inch discs on the bottom. So if he set this thing in dirt or whatever, it wouldn't sink. But then a short time later, he texted us back and said that won't be necessary. He'll just put some type of slate stone or something down where he'll set the bench on. And so with my thinking, the way I think, I said, okay, if I make this bench, and although it's level when it's on the table, everything is level. When he puts it on the ground, and he's putting it on these like slate pads or stones, they might not be exactly level. And so this bench is going to weigh probably about 120 pounds, 125 pounds. Because the bottom portion itself weighs 70 pounds, and then the backrest weighs 45 pounds, and I haven't put the legs on, the rear legs, the front legs, I haven't put the arms on. So it can get to probably pretty close to 120, 125 pounds once we're all finished. And putting that much weight on some loose slate, blocks or whatever, it could cause those to kind of move around. So I didn't want when they sit down for the bench to be rocking. So I came up with the idea of putting, I call them leg adjusters or leg levelers on. And I'll give you guys a closer up view of it. So this is what they look like. They'll be adjustable. I can adjust it up or down, all the way in, or depending on the terrain, I can adjust, say one leg to this height, another leg to another height, and I have about an inch of play in here that I can move these around in. And so what I want to do, and of course it'll be sitting on the ground like this. And so what I wanted to do today is show you guys how I accomplished this. So as you can see, it just sits here. I bored another hole. I'll take this adjuster out. So this is the hole that this lever goes into. And this is a drain hole I put, like on all my sculptures, I put a drain hole somewhere. So as it sits outside, moisture and condensation, it'll have a place to drain. This tube is mild steel. This bottom plate that I put on here is 304 stainless steel. The nut on the inside is stainless steel. And this threaded portion on here is stainless steel. And the threaded portion on here is stainless steel, because I did not want, for as this thing sits, get moisture in it, whatnot. I didn't want it to rust, and then you won't be able to make the adjustments if he moves it to a new location or whatever the case might be. And so what I'm gonna do just quickly is just show you guys how I did this. Be right back. Okay, guys, I'm back. So this is what I'm using. Well, on these particular levelers, I got these from Amazon. Comes in a pack of 8. I only need 4, of course. But they're made by Singtan, Singtan. They are stainless steel furniture leveler, 5/16 inch bolt. The thread pitch is 18. They're called adjusting feet, and they're they came 8 in a pack. And so the thread, like I said, is 5/16 with an 18 inch pitch. And so I just went to Home Depot. You can go Lowe's or wherever you get your screws and nuts and whatnot. I just went to Home Depot and got some stainless steel 5/16 18 pitch nuts. Let me take one out. I did not get locking nuts. I just got just your standard nuts. So it just thread sounds just like that. And so the way I do it, I've made these for other projects, not anything recent, but so what I do is I have my stainless steel plate. This is 3/16 plate. I was going to use 11 gauge, but with this amount of weight, I'll just say 120 pounds. And then someone sits on it, I would just say 120 pounds. And when someone sits on it, they're putting their weight, that could be 200 pounds, that could be 300 and something pounds on this bench. That's one person, this is a 2-person bench. So I didn't want that 11 gauge to, move or anything like that. So I decided to go with 3/16 thickness, plate or sheet metal. Just depends on what thickness you're dealing with before you go from sheet metal to plate. But you guys get the picture. So I use this. I took one of these nuts. But first off, before I put the nut on, I cut out what I needed, because it's going to go on the bottom of the leg. These will be, let me see, this is for the back leg. I have this is for the back, one of the back legs. And then I have 2 for the front legs, because my front legs are going to be, just square. So I, get my, traced everything out that I needed. And when I'm going to do something like this, I always go a little bit smaller on this piece, because this is 2x2. So this is probably 1 7/8 on all 4 sides, because I want a little gap, a little valley to weld into. I don't want this plate to be 2x2, because now I'm just welding in a tiny little seam in there. And when I grind the weld off, I'm taking most of the weld away, so it doesn't have the same strength. So I like to have a little valley in there. So when I weld into that valley and I grind it off, there's still weld in that valley section. So I got the measurement. I laid this on the piece of the stainless steel sheet that I had. I took my scratch awl, went all the way around it, got my trace, got my plasma cutter, and just cut inside of the lines that I traced, because I want this to be a little bit smaller than the, because I want this to be a little bit smaller than the outer perimeter of this piece. So after I did that, cut it out, I took my grinder and grinded all the rough edges and whatnot off. And then I took a ruler. You can take a ruler or any straight edge you have. And I just went from this corner to this corner, lined it up like that, put my mark there, turn it over corner to corner, put another mark there, and that was my center. I took my Harbor Freight punch. It's an automatic center punch. The part number is 621, and it looks like this. And so when you want to put a hole or center, when you're going to drill, you take this punch, put it on your piece, you just take this punch, put it on your piece, push down, and you hear it kind of snap. It has a spring in here, and when you push, it gets to a point and it shoots this thing forward, which puts a little indentation in the metal. And then when you put your drill bit on there, your drill bit won't walk all around the place. It'll kind of stay in that hole as long as you do it properly and carefully. So I took this, found that center between those two lines, punched the hole, took this to my drill press, or took the plate to my drill press, and bored the hole. This, like again, the thread, this is 5/16, so I bored my hole at 3/8, a little bit larger. You can go a little bit larger than that if you want to, just to be sure that when you set the nut on there and weld it, you won't have one side of the thread against the wall or behind that wall, and then you can't get when you try and thread your leveler in, you won't be able to because your nut is too far, left, right, or whatever. So you want that nut to be as centered as possible. So when you put your leveler in there, it'll just thread right in. Because if your nut is to the left or to the right or wherever, it's not lined up centered, when you try to put your leveler in, it won't be able to catch the threads. And so now, hopefully you have tested them all before you weld them to your piece. Because if you have welded this to your piece and your nut is off, now you gotta cut this piece back off of your leg to get in there and try and cut that nut away and center it, and then have to re-weld it again. And when I do this, so I put my nut on there, found center just by looking in there. I just put like 4 welds on each side. One here, 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 and here. I don't weld the whole thing in. I don't want to distort this nut too much. And so once I get that welded in, I'll let it cool. And then, but before I do all these welds, I'll just tack it here, and I'll look in there and make sure I can see the threads everywhere. The threads are not like kind of hidden behind one of the walls on the hole. So I'll make sure it's somewhat centered. I'll take the leveler, put it in there, screw it in to make sure there's no resistance. If I get some resistance and I just have one tack on there, like I had this happen yesterday, I had some resistance and I had one tack, so I just took I just took my wire cutting pliers, put it on the nut, and just gave it a little crank just to move it away from that wall. And then once I, put this back in and it fit up good, I laid it back on the table and tacked the other side. But what I had to do, what will happen sometimes is when you tack it on the one side, your nut will raise up off of the plate just a little bit. And if you don't see that, and you go ahead and just tack it in like that with the nut raised on one side, when you put your leveler in, your leveler won't sit exactly flat. It'll sit on whatever angle that nut is raised to. So if it's raised just a slight bit, your leveler is going to be on a slight angle. Whatever that angle is, it's going to be there. So after you tack it, you check that and make sure that that nut is still seated completely out here. If not, take a hammer or something, just tap it down until you can get it to seat. And then you go ahead and tack it. Like I said, I tack it on 4 sides. I tack it in really good because once this is welded on there, I won't be able to get back in there, if a weld come loose or something like that. Because you got to think about it. When people are sitting on this bench, all the weight is going to be on these few tacks here. So you just make sure you get some really good tacks in there. And if you just feel you need to, you're gonna weld the whole thing up. But I would put 4 tacks on, let it cool off, put another four tacks on, and let it cool off. I wouldn't try and weld a full bead because, like I said, you could distort this, or depending on the thickness of your plate, you could distort your plate. So with all that, what I do now is once my nut is here, I'll put it on the leg of the piece I'm making, get it centered, and then you go in and tack. Get everything tacked in, and then you go ahead and do your full bead all the way around. But this metal is not that thick, so I'll just weld, a section. I'll go to this side, weld this section. Over here, weld a section. Over here, weld a section. Let it cool. Come back, weld a little bit more, all the way around. I won't try and do it in one just full sweep, because again, you can put a lot of heat into the legs, and they could kind of distort. And so once you get that welded on, let it cool off completely, and then you go back and screw your levelers on. But what I'm going to do also is I won't just have the one nut in there. I'm going to put another nut on here, so that once it's level, once you get it on here and get it to where you want it, where you want it, you can get another wrench and you tighten this nut down in here, and that'll lock this leveler in, so it won't, when people sit down, the leveler won't, spin and go up a little bit higher or a little bit lower or whatever. But what you do is take it and lock it in with this second nut, and that'll keep any play. Like, for example, although this is 5/16, there's still just a little bit of play in there, and you won't get all the play out unless you spin this all the way down and lock it to the piece, which you don't want to do if it's not necessary. And so by having this second nut on here, you screw it in, get it to where you want it, and you take your wrench and you tighten that nut down. It won't move. It's solid. It's solidly in place. And that's what it will look like, having the nut in there. And that's how it's done, guys. All right, guys, so that's how it's done. I hope this helped, because if you're making a bench or chair, a table, another use for this is if you're making a pedestal. You don't have to have the legs, but you can have a plate like this, welded into the inside corners of your pedestal. Say if it's going on like an uneven surface, someone commissions a piece for you or from you. Because I've done this with pedestals as well. I'll either do this, or just say you have a pedestal, you have your four corners. As opposed to having a square piece like this, I will cut it right down the center. So I'll have this portion going into one corner, this portion being in a separate corner. And you can either put the pads, this type of adjuster on there, or I also put, like the rubber or foam felt pads under here, so that sharp metal on the pedestal is not sitting directly on their floor. Say they have, wood floors or, a really nice floor. You don't want that pedestal just sitting on the floor, because if someone bumps it or moves it around, it'll scratch their floors. But if you have some of these little plates in the corners, the four corners, and you have your felt pads underneath attached to these, when they slide the pedestal, it's just sliding on those felt pads. So this is not only, for a leveler, but also for you can put felt pads under here. So guys, I hope this helped you. And take this idea, use it, modify it, whatever you want to do with it. And, just do your thing. But that's going to do it for this video. I guess I'll call this maybe how to put leg adjusters on a bench or something like that. I don't know. But I hope to see you guys on the next one. And as usual, peace out.